New art, new items, and honestly, a very new game. That's what's coming on patch 10.23, so let's talk all about it. What's up guys, this is another Pro Guides upcoming changes video, and I'm happy to see you guys once again. Remember that these changes are tentative, so don't be surprised if some of these changes get altered. I'd like to let you guys know that we're starting up a Wild Rift channel, so if you want updates there as well, make sure to stay up to date with us. With that said, let's talk about those upcoming changes. Patch 10.23 is going to be the preseason patch. By then, the ranked grind for Season 10 will be over, and we'll be all going through monumental shifts to the game. They're all happening next patch, so let's talk about them. The first thing that's going to catch everyone's eye is the item systems overhaul. This includes a ton of new items, reworked ones, and miscellaneous changes here and there. We have 23 new Mystic items, 13 new Legendary items, 9 new Epic items, and 28 Legendary items currently in the game that are being reworked. There's a giant list of items, and we actually have a video covering them, so if you want to know more about them, I suggest you guys give it a watch. There's a bunch of new stuff like Gale Force, a marksman item aimed at increasing mobility, and we even have some familiar content such as the Sunfire Aegis, basically a Sunfire cape that also ensures that you'll be able to benefit heavily from cooldown reduction, or ability haste rather, as it'll be called from now on. This stuff can definitely get confusing, but if you need help with it, I suggest you check out ProGuides.com. We've got coaches there that'll help you guys make sense of it, as well as a bunch of other resources that can help you guys improve over there. With that said, it's actually a good time to talk about ability haste as well. So ability haste is next on the list. If you aren't aware, cooldown reduction is getting a complete rework next season. Cooldown reduction has always been a bit difficult to balance. A little bit of it is necessary to ensure that certain champions can function properly. However, the easy access to it also means that a lot of champions could abuse it and become too powerful. To put it simply, each point of cooldown reduction felt too strong, even to the point that a cap had to exist on it. With ability haste, it's a bit more manageable, and should be easier to balance as a result. Currently, how cooldown reduction works is that it'll reduce the cooldown of your abilities by a certain percentage. Ability haste accomplishes the same task, but its effects are a bit weaker. We don't want to overcomplicate it for you, but basically each point of ability haste isn't as effective as a point of cooldown reduction. An example is that 25 cooldown reduction would decrease a 10-second spell's cooldown to 7.5 seconds, while 25 ability haste would reduce it to 8 instead. It's honestly quite hard to wrap your head around it, but ability haste basically means 1 second passes by that much faster. If 1 second occurs 25% faster, you divide that 10-second cooldown by 1.25 and you get your answer. Math is going to be a lot more complicated when you're trying to calculate cooldowns on the fly, but the main point of the game is how you use your character and interact with your opponent regardless. Also, because ability haste is weaker, the cap is being removed. So yes, you can go wild and build a ton of it to your heart's desires. I know this change is going to frustrate you guys and cause a lot of confusion, but if it's for the sake of making sure that the game is easier to balance, I think it's a justified change, if that actually ends up being what happens. Next up are changes to jungle items. Hunter's Machete and Hunter's Talisman are out. In their places, we have Ember Knife and Hail Blade, red and blue respectively. Both of these items will eventually upgrade your smite into either a challenging smite or a chilling smite. These items are otherwise identical, taking on Hunter's Talisman's old effect that applied extra burn damage onto jungle monsters. However, these items are meant to be universal for all junglers and include AD, AP, and even health ratios on the burn damage to monsters. After casting Smite 5 times, you'll consume the item, but retain all the extra effects. This is some extra value right there, as junglers now have more flexibility with their item choices. There are also some changes to runes going down next patch. First off, the cooldown reduction stat rune in the offense tier is being replaced with ability haste. Makes sense, of course. It'll grant 8 ability haste flat rather than the scaling cooldown reduction that it used to. Ravenous Hunter is receiving a change as well. It'll provide Omnivamp instead of spell healing. You start with 1%, but gain 2% for every stack you get. Omnivamp will only be 33% effective with area of effect or pet damage. I love this change because it means that Ravenous Hunter will be a more universal rune that anyone can run. Overall, it also feels like it'll be much stronger, but that might not be a good thing because it might just end up being a rune you take every game as a result. Ingenious Hunter is also getting a change. It'll grant 10 item haste plus 5 more for every stack. Conqueror is having its numbers tuned. The adaptive force is being increased from 1.7 to 4.2 per stack to 2 to 5 per stack. The heal is being lowered from 15% to 9% and 8% to 6% for ranged champions. More damage, but less sustain. Kind of a theme that Riot's had over the years. It's all about fighting to the death, huh? Presence of Mind is getting a complete rework. Damaging an enemy champion will increase your mana regeneration by 1.5 to 11 per second for 4 seconds. This is 80% effective for ranged champions, and energy-based champions will receive 1.5 energy per second instead. Takedowns will restore 15% of your maximum mana or energy. Overall, the rune will be more interactive, and encourage players to trade more often if they want extra mana to work with. Legend Bloodline is having its stat cap reduced from 20 to 15. This means that the rune is going to cap much faster, and you'll end up with less lifesteal as a result. A big nerf, yes, but it'll still be viable if you're looking for access to free lifesteal. Transcendence is going through changes as a result of ability haste being introduced. At level 5, you'll gain 5 ability haste. At level 8, you gain 5 more. And starting at level 11, takedowns reduce the remaining cooldown of basic abilities by 20%. This type of mechanic has never been a problem before, right? Cosmic Insight is also seeing changes because of ability haste. It'll now provide 15 summoner spell haste and 10 item haste. Time Warp Tonic is receiving a small tweak. The new text reads that consuming a potion or biscuit will provide 50% of its health and mana regeneration immediately and grant 5% movement speed while those effects are active. Aside from those changes, we've also got a bunch of quality of life changes for us as players. Of course, the shop is receiving a user interface upgrade, and we've got all those new splash arts coming your way. They look great and give the game a fresh touch for sure. The way Ranked works is also seeing some big changes next patch as well. New season, new league. Let's go, guys. One thing that I love that's happening is that division promos are going to be removed. These felt super frustrating. You could be playing well, but if you happen to get a bad roll of the dice and get bad teams on the games that mattered, your climb could end up stagnating significantly. While climbing ranks and losing ranks will feel much more volatile, this change is one I know a lot of players are happy about. Also, another thing that was never really considered with promotions is that in order to get into them, you had to win a game to get there. So in order to go up a division, you actually had to win 3 of your next 4 games, have a 75% win rate. Yes, you go 2-1 and win, but you still needed to win 1 game to get to those promos in the first place, meaning you had to go 3-1 in your next 4 games. Why did you need a 75% win rate? The next change to Ranked is that matchmaking will hopefully be more consistent next patch. We always have our displayed rank as well as hidden MMR. Sometimes this could create huge rank disparities within the same lobby, and Riot plans to implement changes to tackle this. They want to make sure that players playing the same game are closer to each other in terms of their ranks. Whenever you'd end up with these big gaps between player elos, it would only cause confusion and frustration. With more consistency, the game should hopefully play out much smoother for all of us. Next up, Duo Queue for players in Masters and higher is going to be removed. Duo Queue has caused quite a commotion among high elo players. In a way, it feels rather unfair for players at that level of play to be able to have the advantage of duo queuing. To protect competitive integrity, Riot is implementing this change to make sure that all players in elite levels of play are going in solo. Another change to Ranked is that we'll notice ranked seeding. Previously, everyone would just hop into Ranked with the same starting MMR. This could create a ton of chaos, as players who were significantly better or worse than the starting point could end up in the same game. By taking into account from other queues or accessory data, players will start their ranked climbs from much more accurate starting points. Especially for placements, this change should make sure that games are more fair. Finally, we have some balance changes for champions next patch. We expect even more changes being made as the preseason plays out. This is a time for us, as well as the developers, to experiment with the game and make sure things roll out smoothly at the start of Season 11 next year. The first champion to talk about is Caitlyn. Her passive headshot will gain 25% less bonus damage from critical strike chance. With the changes to items, Riot has already gone ahead and taken precautionary measures to make sure that Caitlyn doesn't immediately get out of hand with her passive's powerful scaling. Critical strikes are overall weaker next patch as well, so Jhin is also going through some changes. His crit damage reduction is being changed from 25% to 14%, but this should still result in him dealing 150% damage with his crits. Also, the bonus AD he gains from crit chance is being reduced from 4% per 100 AD to 3% per 100 AD. Next up is Kayle, whose passive is getting some love. Her attack speed per Zeal stack is getting changed from 30% at max stacks to 30% plus 10% per 100 AP at max stacks. Adding some scaling on the attack speed should ensure that Kayle still scales very well into the late game next season. Ornn is up next. His mana per level is going up from 45 to 65, and his passive is receiving some big buffs. Every time he crafts a Masterwork item, his passive's defensive stat amplification increases 4%. Also, Ornn will gain 10% bonus health from all sources, and also increases health by 4% when upgrading an item to a Masterwork one. Senna is next on the list. Her attack speed ratio is being increased from 0.2 to 0.32, and attack speed per level from 4% to 2.5%. Her passive's crit reduction is being reduced from 35% to 14%, meaning that she'll deal 150% damage with crits. However, her crit chance bonus from 20 souls is being reduced from 15% to 10%, and the excess lifesteal conversion increased from 35% to 50%. Senna's E is also having an AP ratio added to it, so it'll increase movement speed by 20% plus 3% for every 100 AP that she has. Finally, her ultimate's damage AP ratio is being increased from 0.5 to 0.8. Viktor is seeing some massive changes with the item changes as well. First, his mana per level is going up from 25 to 45. His passive is getting an overhaul as well. Rather than the whole Hex Core gimmick, Viktor will be able to upgrade abilities after gaining 100 Hex fragments. Minions drop 1, large monsters drop 5, and takedowns grant 25. Once all 3 of his abilities have been upgraded, Viktor's ultimate automatically upgrades as well. Next, his W is receiving a small nerf. Rather than slowing by 30, 34, 38, 42, and 45%, it'll now slow for 30, 33, 37, 40, 45%. At ranks 1 and 5, the numbers are unchanged, but the journey there will be a bit weaker now. Viktor's E is getting a buff, however. The laser AP ratio is going up from 0.6 to 0.7, while the aftershock ratio is going up from 0.7 to 0.8. Finally, Viktor's Chaos Storm minimum speed is going down from 200 to 20. That's potentially a very, very slow storm. Volibear is also seeing changes. His mana per level is going up from 50 to 70, while his passive's attack speed is going to have a 4% per 100 AP bonus. The damage cap on his E to minions and monsters is also getting buffed from 150 to 550 to 150 to 750. This should especially help him out when he's trying to clear the big objectives like Dragon and Baron. Yasuo and Yone are the last 2 champions receiving changes, so let's just talk about them together. Both Yasuo and Yone will convert crit strike chance in excess of 100% into bonus AD. Currently, the ratio is set at 0.5 AD per 1% of crit chance over 100%. Finally, these 28 other champions are having their mana pools increased to compensate for all of the changes to items. Amumu, Anivia, Camille, Cassiopeia, Cho'Gath, Corki, Darius, Echo, Ezreal, Fiora, Fizz, Gangplank, Hecarim, Irelia, Jax, Kassadin, Malphite, Nasus, Ryze, Skarner, Sylas, Twisted Fate, Udyr, Vi, Wukong, Xin Zhao, Yorick, and Zilean. That covers all the changes coming next patch. Thank you guys so much for watching. As always, make sure to check out ProGuides.com if you're serious about improving at the game. I'm so excited for all the things coming this preseason, and I hope that you guys are too. Make sure to stay up to date with our channel because we'll continue releasing content as the season progresses. Until next time though, best of luck in your games, Summoner.